Let me ask you a question about stigma. I think it's really interesting what you said that you did not have this. I hate the word role model, but you did not have someone that you could look to in professional sports that had gone through this. And now, in the last 5 years, it's name me a sport, and you'll find athletes who have been very outspoken about their challenges. I'm curious though, when you had the match against Roger at the U.S. Open, which was figured prominently in the film, spoiler alert, but I think that also was a big part of your Players Tribune piece. That was pretty far on in your career. And for people that covered the sport, they knew you were, lived with the Roddicks when you were in Fort Lauderdale, and they knew about Minnesota, and they knew about your golf game. They knew so much about you, but you had this fundamental part of your existence, of who you are, that you didn't talk about, and that people were surprised when they learned about it. I'm curious what the burden was, and also what the exercise was of I don't know if it's if stigma is, if I'm inferring something, if there was a fear, if but sort of what was the experience like of having this fundamental part of your personality that you sort of chose not to talk about?
It was unknown. I mean, it was truly unknown. For my first few thoughts of having, pretty severe anxiety and not knowing what it was around Wimbledon. Again, 2012, I had taken off the French Open at that year. Because A, I stink on clay, and B, I had a heart issue called tachycardia that I needed an ablation for. And so I scheduled that one right around the clay season, which was smart for me in my ranking. And so I did it around there. Went and just played Wimbledon. Was my only, grass was my best surface. Outside of like Andy, obviously, and then the guys that sort of won the Wimbledons and stuff like that. I felt like I was one of the better grass court players, and so I didn't want to miss that one. And missing Queens and those types of tournaments were hard. But I was sort of I didn't the unknown was still far, sort of far away, or knowing what was going on was sort of far away. And it got a little bit more and more until obviously New York, that summer. But I had gone through and asked a few people, my father, Andy, you remember Tom Barnes, who recently passed away, and he had an ablation as well. And I kind of thought that, like, my dad had a heart issue where he needed a pacemaker to be put in and stuff. So, like, scary things happening with your heart, right? And I would ask them, and I go, "Do you guys like ever get these kind of thoughts or feelings or whatever?" No, no, not really. I feel pretty good, So it was like, kind of the fear of the unknown, of like, what the hell is going on? This doesn't feel normal. I can't really take a deep breath. I can't catch my breath. I can't, like, why is my mind 4 days away, and I'm living and not living in the moment? Or, like, I remember I played there was a turn that year was Toronto instead of Montreal, and it was in Toronto, and I was all the time, like, Mark Knowles was my coach at the time. I was playing well. That was the other problem, was like I made the quarters of Miami, which was a good result for me. I made the fourth round of Wimbledon. I made the quarters of Toronto and Cincinnati, and, like, or maybe even semis of Toronto. And I remember having to, like, I was so fit at the time, and I tried and worked so hard on my fitness, and I had to play two matches in one day because of the rain and weather in Canada. And I was, like, so nervous about playing, like, two matches. And I was, like, so worried about the second match, like, before even starting the first match. And it was like, it just didn't make sense. I just never had those types of thoughts. And ended up, like, getting through, like, some of it, right? And, like, losing to good players, and lost to Gasquet, who almost won that tournament in Toronto. I think I lost to Roger in the quarters of Cincinnati, and then obviously or had to play him again in the fourth round. So, like, it wasn't like I was, like, first or second round. Like, I was having, like, pretty good results as well. And having someone, there's a lot of things that sort of come together, I feel like, that equate to what happened. Jumping Andy in the US rankings, at the time felt like a big deal, because he had sort of handled, not sort of, he had handled the brunt of the American tennis media or just tennis media in general as being the alpha male of our generation, being one of the best players in the world, being a first ballot Hall of Famer, and then you're you're ranked at you all of a sudden you're like ranked ahead of him, and then it's like it doesn't like compute, it doesn't make sense. It's like, okay, everyone is watching, as opposed to like, everyone's watching Andy, like it's fine, like I don't have to worry about it. Like he always had to take that sort of negative press and stress, and dealt with it incredibly well. But I was new to that, so like that added a lot of extra sort of stress and expectation and stuff like that. And the weight loss and like changing, having, um, going on my diet and kind of getting my fitness back and understanding like the discipline and dedication and professionalism it took to like get everything. So understanding what Andy understood at 18, understanding it at 29, but figuring it out, thank God. But doing it, at a later, slower pace. All these things kind of contributed to I think in eventually getting to that sort of rock bottom, which was in New York at the U.S. Open, when you're thinking like, man, how am I going to take the court here? And the only solace, the only place that I could feel comfortable or didn't have those thoughts was on the tennis court. And once that third round night match against Jill Simone, um, where I got a full blown like sort of panic and anxiety attack in the match, was completely taken away from me. And once that was gone, there was nowhere for me to hide. And I didn't know what I was going to do. And I was done. And there's good, super deep on, post that and trying to figure out how to get my life back in order and how to get off the couch or how to go to the doctor or go to a movie or just get my life back, was daunting and difficult and took a long time.
Talk about the trade-off, Marty, because it's so weird because I'm sitting here going like, Gilles Simon is such a pain in the ass to get through anytime, anywhere. He's one of those guys who's just, you may beat him, but he's going to make you beat him. Under the lights in New York, explain how like the offset to someone who's a dummy and like cynical. How do you get through a guy who's one of the 15 best tennis players on earth at a given time while having had I don't know, I guess panic attack during the match? And then, so you're able to do these like superhuman things that you're talking about, making quarters of tournaments, having, the most consistent results over a 2-year period of your life. And this being the second year of that, to then, not taking the court against Roger, but then talk through like what parts of life became difficult and what the offset is and how confusing it has to be to like, okay, I know I'm capable of this, to being one of the best tennis players on earth while dealing with it. And also I have to relearn these like simple things and like life's little victories kind of in the fallout of that match not taking place against Roger.
Yeah, and it was, as we're not trained to quit, right? Like we're not trained to um not take the court. Like it wasn't in my vocabulary. Like I just didn't, I never, if Stacy wasn't in, if she wasn't in the car driving to the tennis center that day and saying, you don't have to play. Like it never would have crossed my mind.
It's such an obvious thing, and it's such a weird thing
Yeah,
also, right?
yeah. It's just like, oh, and it would cross our mind if like we had an injury, right? I'd be like, let's weigh the pros and cons here. Can I get through this? How much damage am I going to do? Whatever. And this was like an injury that no one could see. And it's funny too, like looking back, because I pulled out, I didn't go back to the US Open 2012, 2013, or 2014. And 2013, I had to give a reason. You got to pull out. You got to give a reason. And I think I went back and it was like, a knee injury or something. My knee is bothering me, so I'm going, whatever. And it was like I look back on like I think it was like there's like a Twitter post that I put that was like, sorry I can't get, make the US Open, one of my favorite tournaments, blah, blah, blah. My knee's too bad, and like, and I sort of think back to a lot of times where there's a lot of players who were off the tour for like a couple months or a year or something like that. And you're like, and I would sort of go back and think like, man, Rafa took a lot of time off, or I remember like Jurgen Melzer like took a lot of time off, like at one stage. Leighton Hewitt took a lot of time off, like at one stage. Andy Murray took a lot. I wonder if like I know they're saying that it's, an injury or something like that, but I wonder how much of that is mental or how much of that is mental health. And I'm sure that one of those names that I mentioned had some, issues with it. When I did come out with it, with the story, I can't tell you how many tennis players reached out to me, female, male. I've had numerous conversations with tons of just athletes that like all different sports, team sports, individual sports, whatever, actors, like actresses that like I've heard of that I would never cross paths with otherwise without this story that have become friends because of our battles with mental health. And
So keep going with that. I mean, do you think tennis over indexes, or do you think we're at an evolved point and we have a vocabulary and we're able to identify symptoms, and every industry, whether it's Hollywood stars or whether it's the Butchers Guild, a certain percentage of the workers are going to have some of these challenges? Do you think there's something specific to tennis, or do you think this is just another workforce where X percent of the population is going to struggle with this?
it's not specific to tennis. I mean, again, like I think tennis is a brutally hard sport to play. One of the only the ones where you leave the locker room and you're all by yourself and you got to figure it out. And I hate the coaching part of tennis. I don't know where y'all stand, but like I hate the coaching part of it because I love the fact that we leave the locker room and you just mono. It's like a non-contact gladiator sport. It's just one-on-one. I got to beat you, and I got to do anything possible to do that. Um, but like, yeah, I think we're still in the leather helmet phase of like, mental health, like learning mental health, learning how to diagnose, how to treat, how to educate, et cetera, et cetera. And like there are, Michael Phelps and I talk a lot personally just about just checking in, just like, hey man, how are you? How you doing? We're very similar in that like we both have sort of found our happy place or like comfort zone, if you will, with a little bit of travel, but not a ton. Exercise. Like I'm the type of person that I have to get sun or try and get sun every day, and I have to sweat every day. Whether it's like a bluff workout that like makes no sense and it's just hot out and I'm gonna sweat, or I go into the steam room, right? Like just to sweat, like just my body sweating and the feeling of like doing something to your body like helps me. He's the same way in that regard. So like there is sort of a small community where you sort of reach out to each other and just kind of go, hey bro, how you doing? How you feeling? And everything good with the kids, and just you just sort of keep in touch. And so I do think that I still think we can come a we've come incredibly far, and we can go way further. Uh, People much smarter than me have to, kind of figure out like the sort of the how to, because if you break it down, you can medicate for a lot of stuff, right? You just sort of throw a Band-Aid on it, medicate, and I don't know where I would be. I'm pretty sure like if I didn't have the support system that I had, and if I didn't have like the medication just to kind of just get me out of that like horrible rock bottom sort of like I don't want to be here sort of mindset, or I'm okay not being here set type mindset or existing mindset. Like, I don't know where I'd be. Like, I certainly, if I didn't have my wife and like support system, right? Like, if you didn't have your family or or like my parents, obviously my dad would like fly out, just like watch football games with me just to like kind of get through that, have some some sort of normalcy. And here I'm like 31 years old at the time, by the way. Like I'm not like a little kid, where I need my dad to like fly out. But in the moment I am. I need my dad to fly out so we can like hang out and I can take my mind off of it. Um, I don't know. Yeah, like I don't know. I don't know where it goes in terms of like diagnosing. I don't know, because I'm sure there are people out there where it's like, I'm so stressed. I've got mental health issues or whatever. And it's like you don't want a stress-free, anxiety-free life. You would never get out of bed in the morning. You just like, what's my motivation? You need anxiousness. Like we got nervous before we played tennis and played a big match or whatever, or Davis Cups. Like I could barely eat, right? Like I can put food down. But that's like a healthy like stress, right? It's like excited stress. It was like where you go too far, you have too many things going on. You've got and then on top of it, the expectation you put on yourself, et cetera, et cetera. So like everyone's bubble and everyone's world is unique in their own. And it doesn't mean that like because I was in the spotlight, if you will, in that moment, or when I was going through mine and someone else isn't, that mine's tougher than theirs. Everyone's trying to sacrifice for their families. Everyone's trying to put food on the table. Everyone's trying to advance in life, right? And get better at things. And it doesn't matter who you are, what you do for a living. Everyone has those stresses. And when they get too far, that's where you get in trouble. And I don't know. I mean, it's a hard anxiety, John, is like a really hard thing to articulate. Like I don't have the vocabulary to like articulate what anxiety kind of feels like, right? It's like, why is my mind way down there? Or why is the pit of my stomach just like closing in on me? And why, like it's hard to describe unless you have, so that is part of it too. And then a lot of people don't want to talk about it. A lot of people aren't comfortable talking about it. I got to a point where I could tell that where I was very comfortable talking about it and then also felt like I could make a difference. And like I know that my first part of my life will always be about tennis, but my second part of my life doesn't necessarily have to be about tennis. I don't do very much in tennis at all anymore. It's like one of those things where I played my first tournament at 6. I was playing tennis at 2. I played on tour. I played Davis Cup. I was a Davis Cup captain. I tried commentary. I haven't tried a podcast yet. Tried commentary.
It's super easy. You should definitely get into it.
I was gonna say, but you're
missing on our channel.
And then I tried the coaching thing. I really enjoyed like coaching. So, like, there's really not, there's not that many other things to do, and it doesn't. So you don't see me that much in tennis. I love golf. As you know, John, I love mixed martial arts. Like I love learning about finance. I love learning about valuing companies and things like it's just there's so many other things in the world that I'm interested in, and tennis is kind of like run its course with me, and so I'm just kind of I don't do much.
Is there any
anymore.
part of you that attaches the kind of not being into tennis or I don't want to speak for you, but or that interested in on a day-to-day basis? Is there any part of that sits with it being a burden at certain points in your life, or maybe this thing that is, if it didn't cause, anxiety, at least added many elements to it? Is there anything that's sort of like, I need my space from this thing that I associate with certain feelings?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I don't think so, but maybe, there's some underlying thing that I don't know about. I did lie and say I haven't tried the doubles thing. I've seen the doubles draws recently, and I'm thinking like, maybe come back and play doubles only.
I can't say anything about doubles without getting in trouble. So,
I mean, I've seen that. I don't give it. Can you cuss on this, by the way?
You can say anything. Yeah, go for it.
I don't give a damn.
Damn, yeah. We've never had the word damn before.